Good morning. Hi, I'm Laura Cruz, and I'm an instructor here at the University of Sioux Falls. I'm with Pete Berger today to discuss strategies in a job search. Pete is a human resources and training manager at Fleet Farm. He has been with Fleet Farm for 3 years. Before that, he was a recruiter for 4 years, where he spent most of his time hiring and teaching leaders strategies for hiring and interviewing. He is currently the Professional Development Director for the South Dakota Society for Human Resource Management State Council. Pete has an Associate of Applied Science in Human Resource Management, and he is finishing his bachelor's degree at USF through the Accelerated Program. It's great to be with you today, Pete. Thanks for joining me in this conversation.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Great. So Pete and I today are going to talk about some strategies for people who are seeking a job, whether this is a college student who wants to get an internship, or whether this is somebody who is a job seeker looking for full-time career work. And we have a few questions that we've thought of today. So I'm going to start by asking Pete, when a student or a job seeker finds an internship or position that interests them, what steps should they take to apply for that job?
I think something that really sets people apart is reading the job description thoroughly and being able to speak to it. Sometimes people will even have a trick question in the interview that will say, after reading the job description, how does your experience align with the goals listed on the job description? So I think it's great to master what's on there. Additionally, there should be instructions on there to tell you exactly how to apply, and I'd always follow that medium. However, if there's no instructions listed, I would go to their website and look for their careers page, which will either be on the very top of the page or on the bottom in most cases. While you're already on their website, it's a great time to just review their mission statement, their core values, and a little bit about the company so you can speak intelligently as to what the company does.
Excellent, excellent. Sounds like preparing for a test almost.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, how can a job seeker get a resume or cover letter past filters for electronic submissions of applications?
That's a great question. I really think that you should create your resume and cover letter as a fluid document, which means use it as kind of your base. And then every time you apply for a new position, try and incorporate some key specifics related to that employer. Look for key phrases from the job description and try and incorporate those into your resume. And then also try and incorporate core values or something personal that you can connect to the business with in your cover letter.
Great, great. Okay, what steps can a job seeker take to strategically network for a position? And I'm curious to hear about person-to-person networking and virtual networking through social media sites like LinkedIn.
Well, LinkedIn is a great resource to use for connecting with others and definitely should not be underestimated. It is quite a different platform from other social media sites, so the tone and presence should look a little bit different on that website. However, as you build your network, you really never know when a connection might lead you to your next opportunity, or if they work for a company that you're aspiring to work for. Maybe they can provide you insight into the interview process and make it easier for you, or even maybe they can provide a recommendation for you to the hiring team. So a LinkedIn network is pretty useful to have, but you won't build it overnight, so it takes time. Everyone starts somewhere, so just start by going out there and creating your profile, getting a nice picture out there, and just start connecting with the people you know. And then every time you meet somebody new, try and look them up and try and connect with them through LinkedIn. I think that's a great way to start building your network. And before you know it, you'll have 500 connections.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. What should a job seeker expect in an interview, and how should they prepare for that interview? Are there things a person should not do in an interview?
Absolutely. Well, my parents always taught me that practice makes perfect.
Okay.
So I always recommend to vigorously practice for any interview. A great way to do that is just going out and researching what questions are typical of the position you're interviewing for. I always prepare at least 30 questions and have a trusted partner run through it with me so I can practice. That way, once you get to the interview, your answers will be a little more defined and you will have had a chance to go back and rethink some of the things you initially said so you're not working on the fly in your interview. Additionally, practice is a good foundation, but you can never prepare for everything. So for example, I used to interview with a senior leader and he would ask every single candidate if this company was a Big Mac sandwich, what part of the Big Mac would you want to be? And nobody was ever prepared for that question. So don't go in there thinking you've mastered every question. Just go in there feeling a little more confident, and you're going to be able to nail most of those questions. And that's really all that counts.
Great. You don't have any funny stories about any particular interviews that come to mind, do you?
There have been some pretty crazy stories I could tell you, definitely. But I think some of the most memorable ones are definitely the good ones. The ones where people find success, especially after they struggled to find a job, or the people who were living out of their car and they come up and tell you that after they've been hired, and that they have an apartment and they have a whole life now, and that's the most rewarding part, I think.
Wow, that must make you feel so rewarded working in human resources when you hear those life-changing stories.
Absolutely. That definitely makes it all the while worth it.
Awesome. Okay. All right. I've heard that some employers check social media accounts of the people interviewing. Is that actually a common practice? And if so, what kinds of things on social media should job seekers pay attention to, maybe clean up?
Well, that's a very great question. You know, it's been actually my common practice that most people in HR don't look at social media when they're hiring. However, we always have those hiring managers that definitely do. I know plenty of people that always look at social media. And then there are the people who use it as a tiebreaker when they have two great candidates to see, you know, who aligns better with their mission and their values. So a great way to handle that situation would be to do a Google search of your name and see what comes up. You want to make sure that you are presenting yourself in the way that you want to be presented. So if there's anything on there that you want to get rid of, that's a great time to do it. And then just adjust the privacy settings on your social media websites, and that should do the trick.
Great. Okay, good. So years ago, when I was first starting my own first job search, there was a conventional wisdom that said, after a job interview, you should snail mail a thank you note to the person who did the interview. Now it feels like the hiring cycle is so fast, there wouldn't even be time for them to get that in the mail by the time they're making a hiring decision. Is there a good best practice for following up after an interview?
You know, I'll tell you what, there's really nothing like getting a handwritten thank you note, and I can actually vividly remember each of them that I've ever received. That's how far and few between they are.
Really?
But they still make a pretty big impact to this day. I think that's one of those things that just sets you apart a little bit. You take that extra time, especially the higher position you go, the little bit of a longer wait between the application and the decision.
Okay.
But even there have been times in my career where I have made a job offer to somebody and then afterwards received that thank you note in the mail. And it makes you feel a little more reassured that somebody's super invested in the company enough to actually get a note, put it in the mail, make sure to do it in a timely manner. If that's not possible or practical, or you anticipate a quick turnaround time, a follow-up email can do the trick as well.
Okay.
I think it's a little less personal, so I would say the handwritten note actually is the gold standard. But I will say that it's probably only 1 in 50 candidates that follow up at all. So doing anything will set you apart.
Wow. I'm surprised to hear that. I'm surprised to hear the note still matters. I'm surprised to hear so few people do follow up.
Yeah, it's definitely something, I think it just goes to help create that personal connection and remind that person that, hey, I'm a human and I have hopes and dreams and I want to connect with you in a different way. And I think it's kind of cool.
Great. Okay. Well, so then now let's talk about the downside of interviewing. Usually there are many more candidates for a position than slots in a company. And so one part of hiring, the interviewing and hiring process is going to be disappointment, getting rejection emails. How can a person cope with that if they're in a big job search and it feels like it's one rejection after another? How do they keep their self-esteem together and keep going?
Getting rejected from a job, especially one that you really wanted, can be devastating for some people. I've seen people switch industries entirely after getting rejected from just 1 or 2 jobs. But that's the thing, there really is only 1 or 2 slots usually in most cases. So we can't hire everybody for the jobs that we have. A great thing to remember is that you can do everything right. You can have the right resume, the right cover letter, you can say the right things, do the right things, and there just might be somebody who's a little better experienced, or maybe they just have different strengths than you. So it's not necessarily anything that you did or didn't do. So always remember that, and don't let that define your success. Another great way to avoid getting into a situation where you feel crushed is don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay.
So apply for the other jobs. Even though one might seem like a perfect fit, apply for the other ones anyways, because you don't want to have a setback after a couple of weeks and you didn't apply for those jobs and now you don't have any opportunities. So definitely take the time and invest in every job you are interested in. And then just remember that you can always ask for some open feedback. Ask the interviewer, hey, what could I have done differently? And a lot of times they might have a policy or they might not feel comfortable sharing some feedback, but every once in a while they will. And it's a great way to learn and grow for the next time.
That's a super tip. I'm not sure that most of us would think about doing that.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, those are the questions that I had in mind for this interview. Is there anything else that occurs to you that you would say to that college senior who is excited to get into the career field but really nervous about it, and they haven't been tested yet?
I think a couple of things that can set you apart is make sure that your content is unique to you. So what I mean by that is don't use the templates for your resume, for your cover letter. It might seem tempting, especially those Microsoft Word templates that pop up right when you open up the program. But recruiters see those day in and day out, and you are trying to set yourself apart. So don't try and blend in by using those. Another thing that you can do is don't ever undersell yourself on compensation. So go into the interview knowing the market, knowing your value, doing some research ahead of time. There's a lot of really great resources out there. I've seen so many people, especially some inexperienced people, go into an interview that they're prepared for, and then when it comes to compensation, they undersell themselves, and usually that results in a lower offer from most companies. So definitely take the time, do the research, and be your best advocate.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I am so glad you agreed to join this conversation, and I feel confident that the information you shared today, these tips, are going to be really useful for USF students and probably anybody in the community who's engaged in a job search.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.